What's the test way a friend has shown you they weren't really your friend? Ghosted me after 20 plus years of friendship. He was my best friend for as long as I can remember, but at some point he just stopped saying yes when I suggested getting together. We could have a conversation about anything, but the second I brought up doing something it was radio silence. He finally agreed to something, then blew me off like an hour beforehand. No rain check or suggestion we try again. I was depressed for days, but that was the day I gave up. He was the best man at my wedding. I loved him like a brother and still hope he's doing well and happy. But the rejection hurts so much that I just don't try anymore. I've mourned the death of our relationship and am done with it. And I still don't know why. I gave her a birthday present and she just said she didn't like it and found it in the trash when I visited. She would always be late to everything. She got tickets to an Incubus concert and a meet and greet. It wasn't in our city, so I saved all of my money to be able to afford the trip, and a week before she texted me saying she was going to Disneyland, so she sold the tickets. I painted a whole big beautiful mural in her room and 2 months later just painted over it with purple cause she got bored. Invited me for coffee and I got really excited because I hadn't seen her for a while and had a lot going on. I was almost homeless at the time, so I took the little money I had to pay for my coffee. I got there and it was a MLM with like 6 other people, just as disappointed as me. Then she did it again. I don't know why I thought it would be different. The horrible first impression my at the time best friend had on my at the time new girlfriend, who is now years later my wife. We all went out to dinner and my wife is shy and quiet while my friends are loud and rowdy. My friend's cousin kept messing with her and being obnoxious despite her very much telling him to stop. At one point he made inappropriate comments on her boobs and it got to the point where she ended up crying and walking out of the restaurant. I followed her and my friend, who had been in the bathroom at the time, called me to ask what happened. I told him his cousin was being a dick and his response was that my GF was being a bitch. That they were trying to get her to talk more but she was giving them the cold shoulder and wasn't welcome to their outings anymore. He went on to apologize later on but was having problems with alcoholism and we drifted our separate ways before long. I drive 6 hours, one way, twice in the span of a year to visit Issa because I thought we were friends and he acted like we were. It cost me $300 each time to visit him, but he was alone in his new city. He moved away for his first job post uni and kept messaging me saying I should come visit blah blah blah. Later I find out this guy came back to my town multiple times and didn't hit me up once. And he stayed for months at a time. Then I tell him about this and he says okay, he'll visit next time he's back in town. So then next time comes around and he stops by literally right before he's about to drive home. To say hi for 5 minutes. Like, dude, you don't wanna see me? Why are you just going through all this BS and making me waste my money? They called me up and invited me over to play a game with them and their friends. At the time I had only barely started driving. But I decided, yeah, that sounds like fun. So I went over to play. When I arrived I found out that they had volunteered me to pick up the other friends. I was not prepared to do this. But she trapped me because I had already agreed to come play with her friends. I was pretty annoyed by this. But I went ahead and drove to 3 places picking everyone up. And no one was really ready to go when I arrived, and one of them also needed me to drop them back on campus to drop off their school assignment. By the time all was said and done it was really late and I needed to get back home because I had to get up in the morning to go to work. Not one of them even said thank you. The friendship didn't really last much longer after that. I had a falling out with my best friend and at one point they wanted to reconcile, so we had a day together and it was good. About 2 weeks later I am summoned to court on traffic charges and refusing to appear. It turned out that this person was stopped by police. Did not have identification and claimed to be me. Once the judge read the police report, giving physical description of what was supposed to be me, he looked at me and dismissed the case. I never saw that person again. I heard much later, through mutual acquaintances, they had committed suicide. Promised to invite me to a group outing, only to text me one day out of the blue that they already left and oh well. From mutual friends who went on the outing. They told me that this friend never told them that I was invited. In 8th grade, after I switched schools, a friend of mine called me one night and told me a kid I wanted to be friends with killed himself. 3 months later I visit their graduation ceremony and find out he lied to me and that the kid was still alive. My best friend since middle school got me knocked unconscious after starting a confrontation with a large group of guys. Proceeded to tell everyone we worked with that I had started it. Few weeks later I had returned from a holiday to my home country and he had moved one of his friends into my room at the place we were renting. I offered to pay everything and even pay her for her time off work for my best friend to come to my wedding, but she didn't. It was a really small backyard wedding and I didn't have any bridesmaids, nor did I want anyone to spend money getting dresses, blah blah blah. I just wanted her to come. The excuse she gave was work, and so I understood, but then later found out she lied and had planned a trip with her other friends. I still don't know why she didn't want to come. We were friends for over 10 years and although it wasn't the first time she had really hurt me, it was the last. I had a very close friend in high school. She moves to Alabama for uni after we graduated. But we kept close. When she came back we didn't talk much. But I still considered her a close friend. We went out for coffee about 2 years ago. She kept asking me about my life and my goals and I said I was happy where I am. I coach gymnastics, and my boyfriend and I will eventually take over his family farm and start our own family. She texted me 2 days later and said, "Hey, so my entrepreneur friend is hosting a workshop. Do you want me to sign you up?" I said no, but thanks for the offer. She then texted me, "So clearly we are at 2 different points in our lives. You have no goals or ambitions. And I don't want that kind of negativity in my life. I wish you the best," and I never spoke to her again. Yeah, that bit about the workshop makes me think she was gonna sell you an MLM. Sorry you lost a friend to that. This is currently happening. I had a stroke in 2020. I'm young, 31, and then found out that my kidneys were failing shortly after. I know it's a pandemic, but not one of my friends have even texted me to check on me or ask my husband, who they're all also friends with. Literally everyone cut me off when I got sick. Can't drink. Not friends anymore. Edit. I can't believe the attention this post got. I'm seriously overwhelmed by the amount of support from everyone. I'm getting G back to everyone, but dang, there is a lot. Lied about me at our government job where I was investigated by the AG and ultimately caused me to leave a job and a boss I loved. She quit when we found out it was her who lied, as she knew my boss would can her ass. Oh, and I'm the one who got her hired. Edited because I forgot to add the best part of all. I was 1 week postpartum on maternity leave when she decided it was the appropriate time to do all this. Talk about some PPD. My best friend got with my first husband while I was pregnant. Helped destroy our marriage. Supported him so he could quit his job and avoid paying child support. Joined him in abusing my kids while they were with him. And then tried to cry on my shoulder when he ended up screwing her over when they split after 14 years of jointly making my life a living hell. After 25 years of friendship, I announced to my best friend that I was moving to the city she was in. I had a great job opportunity and felt like it was an awesome time to make a big life change. I was so excited to tell her. I could hardly wait. She flatly replied with, "Cool." And when I asked her what parts of town I should look at to live, she stated, "I can't help you. You should just figure it out when you get here." We never had a fight. Had been close for our entire adult lives and I had continually helped her in all aspects of her life without hesitation. To this day, I cannot tell you why she started treating me this way. Long story short, we live in the same city and haven't seen each other in 6 years. And I'm quite sure we live minutes away from each other. Invited me to her wedding as a gesture of reconciliation and then uninvited me when I RSVP'd, or in other words, responded to her invitation. Also, another friend took me out to lunch and let me cry to her after I broke up with my ex. She said she had to go to her mom's for a while and she'd be back that evening with treats and a red box. She ended up hooking up with my ex. Edit. As much as would love to respond to you all, it's impossible. But I thank you for your kind words and especially the people who've shared their own similar experiences. Obviously it was a horrible thing to realize. My close friend sleeping with my ex. But had I not found out, I probably would have stayed with him much longer and endured his several red flags displayed early on in the relationship. Looking back now, I take this experience as a warning sign. I also hope Lindsay has since learned to treat people better and that my ex is leading a healthier lifestyle than he was when we were together. Friend found out I had cancer. She took me out to eat. She then took me to a MLM presentation. Edit. Whoa. This blew up. I'm sorry I haven't answered any questions but I went to sleep right after I commented. To cover most. The cancer is gone. It was lymphatic and I've been cancer free for 4 years this month. MLM means multi-level marketing. A pyramid scheme. Amway in this case. I took some free samples and never spoke to my friend again. I was really hurt by the whole situation. I sat in my car and cried after I dropped her off. It made me feel like garbage. Frankly. Thank you everybody for your concern. I'm doing well now. Made us come to her seminar thing for some pyramid scheme thing. I just know it is. I thought we were going to hang out and she told me that she was going to bring us out and eat. Had one friend that bought a bunch of tickets for a midnight movie premiere for myself and our entire friends group, about 15 of us. Day of the show. He texts me and says he forgot to buy a ticket for me. I ask, what do you mean you forgot to buy my ticket? Of the 15 you bought, how is it my ticket that you decided wasn't purchased? Turns out, he did buy a ticket for me included in the 15 he bought. But he just met a girl the week prior and decided to give my ticket to her. So our entire friends group went to the movie. Minus me. There's other things he did to me as well. We're no longer friends. Edit. For people inquiring on what movie it was Jurassic World. My ex got with 2 of my friends after a pretty bad breakup to the point where it just seemed like she was trying to hurt me and my so-called friends were willing to do the same to get some action. So I was in the car with a third friend on Thanksgiving Eve telling him how much this was affecting me, to which he replied, "That's so time man, I'd never do that to you." Well, that Christmas the very next month another friend shows me a picture of that friend and my ex together on Instagram. They started dating shortly after that. So much for "I'd never do that to you." I had a friend do the same. 2 days after a bad breakup and she went and spent the weekend with my ex. He lived up the road from me and she did the walk of shame past my house. My friend, we live on a state, texted my roommate owner of the condo who was living in California at 5 o'clock in the morning PST to say I was high on meth and having sex parties every night. I was fast asleep. Turns out he was the high one texting so early. He was upset at me about something I stood up for and tried to make me homeless. Reason. A friend was moving internationally. He offered me a fridge and washing machine for about half price. I was in uni, but desperately needed it. I told him I had like $20 PW to work with and he was cool with it. We agreed to $15 per week for a year. 6 weeks later his girlfriend comes around to tell me he wants to take me to court to get the rest in one payment. I get served and go to court and present the original agreement. His girlfriend says he needs the money urgently and the judge says that don't mean. He then calls my dad and says I stole his. Dad calls me and I lay it all out. Dad ends up paying him the remainder just to get him to go away. Semicolon. You with a pineapple, Toby. You. My 16th birthday I invited my friends over for a party including dinner. I spent all day cooking with my dad and made beautiful chocolate mousse cups and chocolate bowls. I went all out and I was so proud of the meal. I told everyone that dinner was at 6:30. Nobody showed up until 8:30. They were completely stoned and had a bag of toys from Dollar Tree. I had already cleaned up and put away all the food. They had all been hanging out without me on my birthday and I was still an afterthought. When I was in college, a close friend from high school called me in a panic saying his girlfriend was just discharged from the hospital and he needed to go take care of her. When I say close, I mean every weekend together. Called each other's mom's mom. We had a really tight, small circle of friends. So of course I went to help. I had spent all day at school and all night working dinner at a restaurant. But in an emergency like that, sure, I got you. I drove 40 minutes to get him. Then an hour to her house. He's trying not to panic the whole way. When we pull up, the bedridden girl who needed round-the-clock assistance was sitting on the curb smoking a cigarette. Then bounces up and says, "Give me a hug." I very loudly and aggressively made it clear what a piece of he was for lying about this. I made sure he knew that he traded our friendship for a ride to his girlfriend's house. Then I drove the hour home and except for acknowledging him at his brother's wedding, haven't spoken to him since. She started eyeing my husband while I was pregnant. Edited because this blew up. Yes. I divorced him. And haven't spoken to her since I found out. The experience was a catalyst for a metric ton of personal growth. And I'm now living a fuller and more authentic life without them in it. Aim a fatty. Y'all. I open up to my ex-friend about being depressed and suicidal. He called me a PSSY for thinking about suicide and that I have nothing to be depressed about. He stopped talking to me after that semester was over. Ignored me when I asked for a small favor from them even though I helped them so many times. Wasn't laughing with me but at me and always pressured me into doing things I didn't want to do. Mid 2000s he tried to paint me as a PRNO king in high school just to get a girl not to like me cause he had a crush on her. Backfired. They immediately came up to me, asked me about it and I said I only had one Playboy mag. Lmao. Darker version. Friend of mine told a girl who liked me who he liked that I essentially sexually assaulted an ex etc. She immediately was like, "Then why are you mates with him?" Full stop. Rightfully smelling his BS she talks to me about it. We cut off contact and end up dating. My freshman year in college I had 2 roommates and one of their girlfriends came to visit for the weekend so the other roommate and I were gonna give them the room to themselves for a little while. Most nights this wouldn't be a big deal but this was in the middle of a blizzard and we had almost 2 feet of snow so there wasn't really anywhere to go. So my roommate and a few buddies were gonna take a friend's truck out for a ride through the snowy hills we lived in and smoke some weed. As we are walking out to the truck I realized I forgot something and ran back upstairs to grab it real quick and when I came back down I see the truck driving away without me. Turns out one of our other friends had their GF in town too and he brought her along so there wasn't room in the car for me anymore so they just left without me without waiting or even trying to tell me. When I was 14-16 I lived in a granny flat at the back of my mum's house. I had a big group of friends who would stay every weekend. We'd have drinks. Movie nights. Just hang out really. We were like a family and were all really close. Then mum put our house on the market and I lost contact with every single one of them. I think that's still the most used I've ever felt. Probably because the friendships meant so much to me. And I feel like they faked the whole thing for a place to stay. Met ex-friend as a coworker. He needed a ride home since he didn't have a car so I offered. Drove him home damn near every shift for 3 years. Became my closest friend. I was 16. Just started driving. He was in his mid-early 20s. Now as a teenager I made some bad decisions and wasn't the best guy. But this was 8 some odd years ago. Fast forward to 4 months ago. When he told my fiancée every terrible thing I've done throughout my life. And detailed to her every reason she should leave me. Gave her a spare key to his house and told her that when she makes the right decision his doors are open. Apparently he's been trying to end our relationship for almost 2 years. Feeding her lies and whispering in her ear about how bad a person I am. So that he can have my fiancée join his fiancée in a 3-way relationship. My best friend best man at my wedding ate my married sister on my wedding night. Turns out a full open bar was a bad idea. 20 plus years of a solid friendship gone because his wife and mine don't get along. My best friend in high school invited me to a Blink 182 concert days in advance because someone else cancelled. He was in my driveway and I was about to get in his car and the guy called him and said he changed his mind, so he left to go to the concert without me. She invited me over to hang out. 35 minutes and she was like, I will be right back, gets in the car with her boyfriend and leaves me at her house with her kid siblings. She tricked me into babysitting. Edit. Wow, I woke up to so many upvotes and awards. Thanks Redditors. I do want to say, I was 16 at the time. I was really nice and naive. The kids I unknowingly babysat were really good kids and their nice mother was at work. They don't deserve to go through CPS because their sister was an ass. I eventually told off the friend after graduation. I didn't realize until more situations like this that she was just using me. I just wanted friends. Screamed at me. Over nothing. In a drunken rage and never talked to me again. Years ago. Almost all of my friends abandoned me when I was suicidal and had to go into hospital for a few weeks. It made my depression so much worse to know that sharing how I felt just scared people away. Luckily I spent a lot of time in therapy and made a huge effort to put myself out there in my local music scene, and now I have a completely new, much larger and more genuine circle of friends. He tried to beat the living daylights out of me. And then later in the day. When I was a kid, I had a friend who was poor as hell. My family didn't have much either, but his was worse off. I used to give him things. Now and then. Toys. And whatnot. When I was 10, my mom died. Some months later, I was at my friend's house. And he showed me a cassette tape that I'd given him. And then played it. It had my mom's voice on it. For some reason, I had recorded a conversation with her. I thanked my friend for the tape. And he asked what I meant. I told him thanks for giving it back. He said that no. I gave it to him. And it was his. Then to show that it was his, he took it out of the tape deck. Pulled the tape from the cassette. And snapped it. We were kids. Sure. But that was one of the test things that someone has ever done to me. When I announced on FB that I was in a relationship, she PM'd me saying how awful it was and how I will no longer have time to see her and blah blah blah. I wasn't dating her and she had told me before she wasn't attracted to me. I cut her out though when I started getting really sick, and instead of sympathy she said how inconvenient it was for her.